Hello everyone, welcome back to some more of The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Last time, a great deal of things happened. We were at an impasse in the case, where a lot of the evidence basically to show that, well, Enoch Drebber couldn't have done it. And if he did, well, why would he have done it? But, there is one key thing. Namely, the fact that there were two bird cages. And that's one. And two, instantaneous kinesis is not possible, meaning there were definitely two bodies. However, if that's the case, one, what happened to the second body, because that all of a sudden disappeared, and two, who carried out the killings, because Enoch Drebber was nowhere nearby when the murder occurred. At least I think he was nowhere nearby. Anyways, we got around to the fact that for this whole thing to have worked, he would have needed an accomplice. Who would that accomplice be? Well, the answer is Scotland Yard's coroner, Courtney Scythe. And yes, her name is pronounced Scythe, not Scythe, no. Whatever. My mistake that I've been making for the last few years. Anyways, so yeah. Let's see. We named her as the accomplice because the forensics team, there was a point in time where the forensics team had full on was full on analyzing the crime scene as part of their whole experiment thing. And they were left by themselves. And considering the fact that she's heading the team, well, it wouldn't be out of the question to say that she did something a little deplorable. Anyways, so yeah, that happened. No one agreed with us as we thought would happen. We got through a summation examination, and essentially, it's kind of it. I mean, we figured out the body being used was the waxwork that was stolen, just because. I mean, we know Drebber stole it. Why would he steal it if not and then return it like 2 days after the whole event happened? So yeah, there's that. And basically the trial went to a recess. That way, I think that way Van Zeke could subpoena Courtney Scythe, and Madame Tuspels for their testimonies. However, immediately after the whole, I guess trial up to that point, Scythe herself came to us and basically said, Lord Strongar's not going to allow me to testify, so sorry, and then just left. Basically, well, I mean, she did kind of warn us, but yeah, she left. And even Sholmes warned us, saying like, hey, if there's a point where, if there's any doubt in your mind, pounce on it or something like that. So yeah, that's where we're at now. So I guess let's continue on.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves to be embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation.
As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zeeks.
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels?
Not at all. She's in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned.
Very well. Bring in the witness.
At once, my lord.
Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand.
Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Jebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present it's all we have to go on. Is that supposed to...
State your name and occupation for the court, please.
How did her voice go again? My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I am a waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of Madame Tuspels' Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world. Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face?
A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it to have been kidnapped.
Waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Yes, my lord, there was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim.
At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odiah's man.
Let me check one more time. Okay. But of course, I know him well. He's a part of my odious personages exhibit. I don't know French. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Esmeralda does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd!
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public, after all.
The trial took place in a closed court, where the proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tuspel's principles. What principles? The family Tuspels has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Tuspels' waxwork from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tuspels family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors.
Yeah?
We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
Oui, The true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout the Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tussauds special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madam, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model, and your personal involvement in this creation.
With pleasure. Excuse me? Okay. The special exhibit is in the House of Waxworks. It's based on a rumor that it shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with the Tuspel family principles. I listened to the aid of the grave digger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried I could be discovered.
Yeah? So you... Hold up. Hold up. The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this? So you're telling me you went to the graveyard, dug up his body, just to see his face, that way you can sculpt it and then just put him back afterward? What? Okay. I'm gonna think twice before going to a museum of waxworks. I was thinking of doing that one of these days, but yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. Well, maybe it is. Anyways, yeah.
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew. Only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it? The face of that monster?
Naturally, I was aware that at the time that his identity was a secret. But two spells would not be two spells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen this special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based on the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitness who saw it.
Right. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
The public enjoys absurdity, monsieur. That is why I've reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it?
That is correct. The professor you see here before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber's Dr. Scythe.
And there's to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. Alright, let's see what we got. There for a long time. How long were you there for exactly? You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problem with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after the death. Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. Rigor mortis? It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to the relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one. As the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
I see. So that's why you await.
Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder if that information about the courts... I wonder about that information we just heard. Has to be significant. Actually, wait. If the mouth started relaxing, then... Grave. Yes, Sato? This is no time for jokes, Mrs. Sato. Okay, so testimony amended. Let's see here. A very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis. So he was dead just 2 hours before. Wait. As dawn approached.
Hold it!
What time was she there for? You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately? Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed it did. First light would have been out around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early. The fact is I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. Excuse me? In a half hour. He finished his work in a half hour, so she finished at around 4:10. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry. Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to go extraordinary lengths for your work, madame.
Yes, that is significant, now that I think about it. Let me get that back in testimony, because I just realized something. You're quite right, Mr. Naruto. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it? Ha 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 ha. Yeah, totally unimaginable. That's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly amend your formal testimony again then, madame.
With pleasure, my lord. Okay. So, something about this is not right. Because rigor mortis, it took a long time before the onset of rigor mortis, right? Meaning the body would have to be killed approximately, I'd say, under 3 hours. Let's say 2 for brevity. so the body would have to be killed 2 hours before. With that being said, if we go to our autopsy report, the killer was hanged at midnight, and considering the fact that she said she was there 30 minutes, she would have arrived at around 4:10. She's there at 4:10. Rigor mortis, it was well, if the body was hanged at midnight, then the body would have been there for 4 hours by the time she arrived. Which means rigor mortis would have already set in, which means something ain't adding up. Let's move at the autopsy report here.
Objection!
Madame Tuspels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And, is that the problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradicted one another. Quoi?
Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame? You are, yes. As I said, the sifting of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 or 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June.
No.
If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already set in. Oui, yes, you're right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd.
In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time.
Impossible!
Order! Order! Counsel, this is beyond folly! Not only did you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate the members of the staff at Barclay Prison where the execution took place.
By heck?
Extraordinary!
Not my day!
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
And what fact would that be?
The professor died that night, without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands.
Objection!
There was no... Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen at that case?
It's impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once.
Well, easy. If he didn't die... What was it? Let's see. Yeah, if he didn't die at the gallows, then he had to have died some other time. And the only other record we have of him being alive is right here.
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting there was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word! Yes, indeed.
Masoi, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up.
And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
Objection!
On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well.
What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you can see he's right here before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of the staggering scene?
Blah, blah, blah. We already know. It's Drebber.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Drebber? The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxworks recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. A condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is the 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order! Order! Surely not, counsel.
Drebber was there? In Lowgate Cemetery?
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course. Madame Tussauds doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. None. But that would mean...
Madame Tussauds. It would appear that you know of the name Enoch Drebber.
Yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past. What? Oh my.
Good gracious! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, of course. The story of young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is a paper from which comes the article I have already shown in court. You're saying his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me! Yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable! When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see! So you went to meet with Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you?
Let me see something here. I just noticed. Yeah, Charles Darwin to receive Copley Medal. Clever. Because I think this does take place around that time. Oh, that's nice though. They didn't think they had actual stuff. They have actual words here too. Wow. Anyways. Exactly. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it is written in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from this cemetery. A 10-year-old special exhibit? Wow. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim and its face is obscured by a mask. So, the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asmans but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Scythe put her name. No, Doctor. Wow, what am I doing? Guess I'm getting tired already. Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber will use that particular waxwork as the body double. Ugh. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But, according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box that you were warned about is the Professor case. But please, don't make the mistake of thinking you get any information of it out of me. Something happened on the night of the killer's execution 10 years ago. And surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zeeks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together.
Order! Order! Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to test on Her Majesty's orders.
Alright then, Dr. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I am just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zieks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to the newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a great secret of Dr. Scythe. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was the student who saw it?
You consider it eminent, actually, can't you? Surely he's not going to claim he's really what he saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student at the University of London, was he?
A little bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
Kuh. What an interesting twist. When, at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now, here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly, my story matters, and in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night of 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course, as you wish. Alright, let's see. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, The illustration in that newspaper was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course. You'd have to have a screws if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead. But, so you're saying this article is not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes. If the details of the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument.
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. Yeah? As you know, Logate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So, among students at the university, it had a reputation of for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So, you were one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society.
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Yes. That was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord.
Alright, what do we do?
What do we do? The reason I was in Logate at all was for a spot of moonlighting. Let me move this there. Okay, never actually saw the professor, huh? Then where did this come from? Hey, hold up! What is this? Oh, as man? What is this? Oh, as man. Okay, I gotta remember that. Wow. What? That's okay. What? Anyways, let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay, so yeah, it's here. Wow, it is right here. Statement 3, yeah. It is the 10-year-old article.
Objection!
As for why? Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor that night 10 years ago. Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there. You are not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you just told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago. I'm trying too much, aren't I? It was decided that, in the closed court's ruling, that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison ones were to see the man's face. But obviously the provision of the mask was, not public knowledge.
Sorry, I am literally tired right now. So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard, a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about this condemned man's mask. So, unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that an artist would have included the mask in that demonstration.
Order! Order! Well, Mr. Drebber?
It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige. I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. We have you hook, line, and sinker. Just bite the bait already. A fellow grave robber at work. You are oh, come on. A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy that's in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself? Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say?
Objection!
No! But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, and the next second a gunshot suddenly rang out from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breaths then stilled once more.
We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them.
If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord.
Ah, yes, well,
I can only assume it was an embellishment that bolted on later by the reporter. Got something to say?
Excuse me!
Madam Dispels. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Oh, Allah, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago through university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshots. Stop! You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Ugh. Please, Madame Tuspels, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. None. You were very explicit about these details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. Who is that? And the blood that splattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, woman! You're making all of this up.
That will do. Mr. Drebber,
Yes?
you refute the account just given by Madame Tuspels?
I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on! Do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position, witness.
Very well. No gunshot, nor any spattering blood. Well, fortunately, wait, no, that's a lie. If you recall, here. If we open this out, there's some dark stain on the bellows of the cameras. So yeah. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll present this.
Objection!
No, excuse me? What do you mean? There was blood splatter on the camera. What? No gunshot at all, no splatter. Yes, that was... Nor any spattering blood. Yes. Unless I have to examine the camera again? Because it said dark staining is visible on the bellows. Dark red stains, looks like blood. No, okay, yeah.
Objection!
What the... Yeah? It isn't? Can I go back to a previous save? I mean, I don't... 9:54. Alright, let me actually do this so I can get my stuff back. Excuse me for a sec. Okay, and we're back. Okay, so apparently I missed a few things, namely... I missed a few things. So, yeah. I'm looking at a guide right now, okay. So I guess I was a bit too hot on my heels now. We have to actually look at something else for a moment. So, I'm gonna press this statement.
Hold it!
And end the video here, because honestly I'm a bit too tired to continue right now. So, yeah. Next time we're gonna find a way to prove, we're just gonna keep trying to prove that he was there at the scene and what he saw was true. So, yeah. Beyond that, we do hear of a few more things. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. So this is like the second to last. This right here we're doing now is basically the second to last testimony. So yeah, we'll end this case in maybe the next 1 to 2 episodes. Oh yeah, that's good. Anyways. Yeah. So that being said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.